All right, Kevin. Well, right now I want to update us all on a situation that we have cared a lot about. Do you remember, Kevin, a few weeks back when we talked about the potential TikTok ban?
Sure do.
Well, Kevin, if you were to check your phone right now, I think you would see that TikTok is still on it.
It is, and I know this because I've spent a lot of time on TikTok over the past few days looking up various things related to WrestleMania and why everyone keeps talking about it.
Well, I mean, it was a great show, and we'll talk about that maybe offline. But in the meantime, I think you might be curious about one of the most important phenomena that we see in our Congress today, Kevin, which is the phenomenon of how a bill does not become a law.
Yes, and we just talked about this privacy bill that is now sort of being proposed in Congress and some of the various hopes out there about whether it might actually pass. The TikTok one, I will say, is a case where I was too optimistic. I thought that lawmakers were sort of rounding the corner, that they were heading toward actually passing this bill to force ByteDance, the Chinese owner of TikTok, to sell it. And it's been about a month since we first started talking about that. And so far, at least TikTok is still on my phone. I think it's still on your phone.
It's still on mine.
And it still exists. So what happened?
Well, so I was right there with you. I also thought this was going to pass. And so this week I got curious as to what has happened and what has not happened. Now, if for some reason you haven't been following the story, maybe just a few details to jog your memory, it was just about a month ago that after years of trying to force ByteDance to divest TikTok or potentially even ban it, a bill came out of nowhere in the House. And within a couple of days, it passed out of committee on a 50-0 vote. And about a week later, the entire House passed it by a pretty wide margin. That is when we last talked about this on the show. And as you said, we thought, hey, this thing really couldn't happen.
Right, because President Biden had already signaled that he would sign this bill if it arrived on his desk, and sort of the only big hurdle remaining was to get the Senate to pass the same bill that the House had already passed. So what happened in the Senate?
Well, you just named the first thing, which was one of the main reasons people thought maybe something wouldn't happen, was that the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, seemed sort of lukewarm about this. He did not say, we are going to bring this to the floor. And in fact, there was no companion bill. And there was some weird internal divisions among the parties that you don't typically see in a case like this. For example, Representative Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, who's the #2 Democrat in the House, she actually voted against this bill, even though most Democrats were for it. Former President Trump also came out against the TikTok ban. And of course, there are many Republicans in both the House and the Senate that pay very close attention to what he wants. So all of a sudden, there was kind of a cloud around this, despite the fact that it had passed overwhelmingly.
What are some of the explanations you've seen and heard for why this bill seemed to lose momentum after having so much of it in the House?
So I would say that there are sort of three theories that I have heard. One is there is concern that this bill would not withstand a legal challenge, that there are maybe some constitutional issues around it, some free speech issues.
Two, on the Trump front, that's essentially a case of maybe self-interest. Trump changed his position on a TikTok ban after meeting with a Republican megadonor who is a major investor in ByteDance and was also a major shareholder in the shell company that just merged with Truth Social and would stand to lose a lot of money if TikTok were to be wiped off the face of the earth.
And then I think that there has always been a contingent that says that this ban is sort of coming from a hysterical place, that there is no real threat here, that this is essentially a moral panic, and so people are just sort of resistant to getting rid of the app for that reason.
Right. And the one change that I have seen to the content on my TikTok app when I open it in recent weeks is that there's just a lot of pro-TikTok marketing that the company itself is putting onto people's TikTok apps. So like I opened my TikTok the other day and I got this video that was basically from a TikTok creator sponsored by TikTok explaining why millions of small businesses depend on TikTok and why it'd be a super bad thing if it went away. So do we think that TikTok's efforts to kind of mobilize its user base through the actual TikTok app had an effect?
Well, it's interesting because the last time we talked about this, we did talk about having an effect, but it was a negative effect, right? You'll remember that there were these messages that were being flooded through the app that said, hey, call your Congress member and tell them you do not want this to happen. And members of Congress got super mad and they say, aha, look, this is an instrument of mind control. Look at all the phone calls we're getting to our office. But TikTok did not bow down. They mounted a marketing campaign. They're spending millions of dollars. And yes, they are doing exactly what you just said. And in the They're not just promoting the sort of small business side of it. There is an ad featuring an American nun who uses TikTok to, preach the good word.
I'm going to teach you how to pray. I'm going to teach you how to meditate, how to connect with a higher power, because we need that. We need strength and comfort.
There was a great story about this in the New York Times, the sort of marketing efforts that TikTok is doing. So yes, there's been a huge marketing push, but as far as I can tell, that sort of lobbying push has not been the main reason why this bill seems to have slowed down.
Right. I mean, my assumption was that it was some combination of, aggressive lobbying, the kind of Trump factor that you mentioned, and also just kind of the fact that Congress can't really seem to focus on anything for longer than a few days. Like there's a kind of shiny object problem here, which is that something comes up like TikTok and everyone gets really excited about it and they build some momentum and all the politicians want to go on cable news and talk about why they're so excited to do this thing. And then they kind of, something else happens, the eclipse or something happens in Ukraine.
And I hope that the Senate takes action against this eclipse because it was quite scary to me.
But there's just there seems to be a lack of perseverance when it comes to actually moving these bills to the point where they might actually become law.
That's right. So let's talk about this shiny object problem. So
last week, in a letter to his colleagues, which was about everything that he wanted to get done in the coming months, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, did mention that there was a possibility of working on a TikTok bill.
But as I read this letter, this mention comes almost in passing. It is on page 2 of a letter that identifies 10 other priorities that the Senate could also work on. So, if you want to be optimistic, you could say, okay, at least Schumer seems open to it. On the other hand, there's a really long list of stuff that the Senate might do instead. However, there was another little twist when on Monday, the Senate Minority Leader, so Mitch McConnell, called on his colleagues to take action on the bill. So he sort of brought it back into the discussion. He gave a floor speech.
I'm speaking, of course, of TikTok.
And he said, quote, "This is the matter that deserves Congress's urgent attention, and I'll support common sense bipartisan steps to take one of Beijing's favorite tools of coercion and espionage off the table." So, Kevin, where would you rank this in terms of quality of Mitch McConnell's 38 years of floor speeches in the Senate?
Well, having listened to the entire thing, beginning to end, I will say it's in the top quartile. No, obviously I didn't know. That actually surprises me because I thought that
after Trump came out against a TikTok ban, my assumption was that most Republicans were going to run screaming from this bill because they didn't want to do anything that could put them at odds with him.
Obviously, he is sort of the standard bearer of the party. And so it is surprising to me that Mitch McConnell broke from former President Trump here. Do you have any sort of insight about why that might be?
The only thing I can think of is that Mitch McConnell is not running for re-election and he doesn't care anymore. And he's actually telling us what he really thinks about this.
So given that it now appears to have lost some momentum, this attempt to ban or force the sale of TikTok, but that maybe it's coming back because Mitch McConnell wants to focus on it. Like, where would you handicap the odds of a TikTok ban at this point in time?
I mean, I think that it is leaning toward not likely to happen. On Monday evening, the Senate Commerce Committee Chair Maria Cantwell, who was also a player in our previous story, introduced the data privacy bill as well. Well, Senator Cantwell told reporters that she doesn't think that the House bill can withstand a legal challenge, or maybe I should say she said it can't well withstand a legal challenge, Kevin. And that's really important because she runs the Senate Commerce Committee, so it's kind of her call.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple ways of analyzing the position that TikTok is in. One is by sort of parsing the statements of lawmakers who are actually in a position to pass this bill and do something about it. The other is by looking at TikTok itself and ByteDance itself and how they are reacting and what the mood is over there. So what can you tell me about ByteDance and how they are proceeding at this point? Are they acting like a ban of TikTok or a forced sale is imminent?
So I'm so glad you asked me this, and I have some thoughts here, but I want to make clear that I am speculating. Okay, I can't get anyone at ByteDance to tell me what they really think, but I've noticed a couple of things. Okay, one, the South China Morning Post reports over the last week that whereas in 2020, when President Trump first tried to ban TikTok, ByteDance got really involved. This time, they're taking a little bit more of a hands-off approach, and they're letting TikTok, the sort of regional subsidiary, handle a lot of the marketing. You could read that a couple different ways. Maybe ByteDance thinks it would be counterproductive if they were sort of in everyone's face, but I don't know. Part of me feels like if this felt like a real existential threat, you would see them being much more active than they're being. So that's thing one. Thing two is actually my favorite, though, which is, have you heard about TikTok Lite?
No.
Okay, so basically, in response to some slowing growth in Europe, TikTok is rolling out a new version of the app that is designed to entice European users who are 18 or older with financial incentives for using the app. So this app will reward you for certain actions.
But you can get paid to watch TikTok? This is huge news.
TikTok. So, you know, if you watch videos, if you invite friends to join, and you earn these points, and they can be exchanged for gift cards, you know, and maybe other currencies that you can use inside the app. So why do I talk about this? It is very funny to me that lawmakers think of TikTok as the Beijing mind control app, and TikTok now has a new app that gives you financial rewards for staring at the mind control app for even longer. That doesn't seem to me to be the action of a company that thinks it's about to get banned in the United States of America. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And it also raises a very thrilling possibility, which is that teens might actually be able to justify spending hours a day on TikTok by their parents by saying, Mom and Dad, I'm paying my way through college. This isn't mindless entertainment.
I just clocked out of my shift at the TikTok app, spent 8 hours earning enough gift cards to put some food on the table this week. So, look, and it's not just this TikTok Lite app. They have another new app in development. It's called TikTok Notes, and it's built as a direct competitor to Instagram. They also have CapCut, which is a video editing app that's very popular, and another app called Lemonade. So, look, this company is in full-on expansion mode.
You skipped my favorite one of these. Did you know that TikTok, or ByteDance rather, has a homework cheating app?
Wait, no. I didn't know that. Really?
I just learned about this week. I feel like every week I learn about some new piece of like the ByteDance cinematic universe.
Yes.
And this week, for the first time, I learned about the existence of an app called Goth. Gauth, not goth like
the phase I had in high school?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is an app that ByteDance has created that basically lets you point your phone at a homework problem, like a math problem or a science problem or an essay prompt, and it just uses AI to like solve your homework for you. And they are marketing this aggressively to teens, which is just my favorite piece of this, because if you are, as a parent of a teenager, were not already pissed off at TikTok for like commandeering hours and hours of your kids' screen time a day, now they're like, we're going to give you another reason to hate us. Here's an app that lets you cheat on your homework.
I truly did not know about this until you just mentioned this. And I'm laughing so hard because this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? You would think that if it seemed like there was real action here, TikTok would be hedging its bets a little bit more. It would say, maybe let's not roll out the cheating app. Let's maybe not roll out the rewards app in Europe. But instead, they're going full steam ahead. So again, I'm in the realm of speculation here. We should say that House bill, it came out of nowhere and passed in barely a week. Something like that could still happen in the Senate. But if you've wondered what has happened over the past month in the TikTok cinematic universe, that is what is going on. So, Kevin, I would put the question to you that you asked me, which is, how would you sort of assess the odds here of what happens next?
I have no idea. Like, honestly, I have lost faith in my ability to accurately forecast what is happening to TikTok and ByteDance, because there was a point where I thought it was sort of a done deal that this bill, this attempt to force a sale of TikTok, had so much momentum behind it from so many different parts of the political universe that I thought this is maybe the one thing that Congress can agree on right now and actually go forward and get it done. And then it seemed to stall out. And so I just have very little ability to, maybe I could spend a day making calls to lobbyists on K Street and lawmakers and sort of piece together some more accurate forecasts. But I just do not know. I think there are still good reasons to want to support a forced sale of TikTok by ByteDance. Like you and I made the case several weeks ago for why we were sort of leaning toward banning it. None of those underlying reasons have changed. And in fact, like the first thing I thought when I opened up my TikTok app and I saw all of these ads, these like pro TikTok ads that were actually put there by TikTok, the company, I thought, well, this is a demonstration of the power that this company has to kind of shape the views of Americans. And I do worry about that. And none of that reasoning has changed. But I guess, man, I am just so cynical about Congress and their ability to get anything done before being distracted by the next shiny object. So I guess if I had to handicap it, I would put it in, I don't know, maybe 50-50 at this point, but that's a total guess.
Yeah, it really does feel like a coin flip, and I'm like you, I still lean on the side of wanting to see Congress take some sort of action, but in the meantime, as soon as I can earn gift cards for my TikTok screen time, well, let's just say I'll be very interested.
Have you seen the thing on TikTok? Wait, I'm going to test your knowledge of the TikTok universe. Because one particular thing about TikTok is, like, you know, everyone's TikTok is so individual that I never know, like, what anyone else is seeing. So yours could be totally different than mine. Does the phrase, "What's up, brother," mean anything to you?
Sadly, it does not.
Okay, we can cut this. There's a thing going around on TikTok where you're supposed to go up to your boyfriend or your husband and go, "What's up, brother?"
And then what do they do?
I'm sad that I know this because I did a deep dive on this last night. You're supposed to go, "Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday." Special teams, special players, special plays.
See, if I were trying to argue that this is a Beijing mind control app, this is exactly the sort of thing that I would be submitting to the Senate, because literally not one word that you just said makes any sense. I think I might be having a stroke, actually. I'm going to call the doctor as soon as we're finished recording, based on what you just shared with me.
I'm the reverse Mr. Beast. I only take, I never give. These are apparently, and I know this because I was so mystified by this TikTok trend that I had to go all the way down the rabbit hole. These are lines, these are catchphrases from a popular Twitch streamer known as Sketch, that apparently men, especially men who are into sports, know very well.
Well, I think we've just identified why I wasn't super familiar with the information.
You're only interested in fake sports.
That's right.
All right. Well, in conclusion, TikTok is a land of contrasts.
And stay tuned as things either happen or do not right here on Hard Fork. Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.